this was the little team that I formed to just brainstorm a little bit about what to talk about today with you. And you can see these are some of the 200 ambassadors that we have at PeAch from the PeAch project that was financed by it was an Erasmus Plus project, and we are continuing working together. And the different languages that we bring on the table and that we can share, and also the different professional backgrounds that we have. So we have speech therapists, we have healthcare practitioners in a broader sense, pedagogische educative professional, sorry, I'm a language consultant with a background in linguistics, speech language therapist, I said already, a migration specialist, teachers, playgroup leaders, and people who started playgroups in different countries. What does PeAch stand for? It stands for Preserving and Promoting Europe's Cultural and Linguistic Heritage through Empowerment of Bilingual Children and Families. We expanded it now. It's not only Europe's languages. I mean, the languages that we have in Europe are practically worldwide languages. So it's not only the official national languages. We have a guide for parents that I co-authored with some of the collaborators. We have informative videos on the PeAch YouTube channel. You will see it in the next slide. An online collection of ready-to-use materials in these 24 EU and more languages, also some dialects, sorry. And a guide for educators as well, where also Ellen Rose and Campbell and Emmanuelle Pichon-Forsman and Professor Jim Cummins collaborated with. We also have what I mentioned before, more than actually 200 ambassadors, PeAch ambassadors. We have our own YouTube channel where you can find some videos that are informative for parents and educators. And we have a playlist on Spotify in all these languages and different age groups that we focus on in the guides. And these are from 0 to 12+ year olds. So here you can find, maybe you can recognize it if you go on the website, or if you want to use a QR code to have access to it directly and have a look. These are the guides for parents, the database that is still evolving, so it's never ended. So if you have any kind of good resource, we are looking for free resources in order to make these resources available for everyone, not only for those who can pay or have the means. And the educator guide on the right-hand side. This one is our YouTube channel, so that you can recognize it if you go on YouTube. And the PeAch for Bilingual Children Spotify list, where you can find a lot of songs and podcasts and shows online for children in that age bracket. So we want, or what we do and what I do also for my profession as language consultant, is for parents to get informed about what it entails to raise a child with multiple languages from the start, and to find effective language strategies for the family that can change over time, which is a big aspect of this. Get informed about the myths and how to respond to the different myths. There are many. I have 26 on my website, and there are more. And to keep the children motivated to use a target language, whatever language it is, whether it is the home language or the home languages, or the ones that they need to function in the society or at school. And know also how to foster the target languages in everyday life. Yes, it's not only at home in the micro society, but also in the meso society or macro society. That is very important, and you can find most of these parts taken care of in the guide for parents. This guide, it can be downloaded for free, so you just click on the link and you get the PDF downloaded. So what we find very important also to transmit to parents who are raising their children with multiple languages is that the use of language can change over time, and it changes very, very often, actually. Whenever changes happen in the family and there is less time to dedicate to the child for whatever reason, and less exposure to the target language and a shift in the child language use. If you want to know what a shift is, I have a little video on my website, on my YouTube channel about what language shift looks like throughout practically the lifetime. It's also about me. I grew up with multiple languages and I shifted languages many times. And whenever these shifts or these changes can happen, parents need to be aware of that, and also teachers, because there can be moments, for example, when they are starting daycare or school and the other language becomes more important. What do we do with the home languages? How can we support the home languages? Or the illness of a child or a family member can have a major impact on the language use and the development of the child as a whole. Yeah, the parent, or all of a sudden the parent travels that didn't travel before, or the separation of parents, whether they separate legally or because one of the parents need to live in another country, for example, or the arrival of a sibling and more. Now we're talking about schools here, so let's focus on the starting daycare and school. And here I would like to quote Jim Cummins, when he says classroom instruction should encourage students to use their full linguistic repertoire in flexible and strategic ways as a tool for cognitive functioning and academic learning. Well, what we can say for the school, we could also say for home. And this is where we want to help the parents with to be more aware. Of course, your children or our children need to function in the school language, but what about the home language? If we do not want them to lose the home language or languages, we need to apply the same criteria also for home. So to be as open as a language-friendly school, be as open also as a language-friendly family or home. So with this, I just transformed a little bit what Jim Cowan said. Children should be given the opportunity to share their full linguistic repertoire in flexible and strategic ways as a tool for cognitive functioning and general learning, so including also the home languages, and welcoming also the school language. Because what I experience also very often is that parents, when the children are schooled in an additional language, they tend to say this is now the language that is most important, and so we should use it even more at home, because I mean you need to do homework, you need to understand all the subjects, you need to be able to learn the vocabulary, although your exposure to that target language is very often only at school or maybe in the community, but not that often, not that much as your monolingual or the local children have. So I think it's your turn.
Yes, so at PeAch, we have consolidated the ways on how to motivate the child to speak the language. So first and foremost, of course, as a parent, you should be enthusiastic about your own language so that you can transfer to your child. If you're already hesitant on your own, that will not help being positive about the new language or your own language. And you have to always choose the topic that the child is interested in, because that makes discussion and collaboration easier. And of course, what they need when they are going to school. And yeah, always stay positive, because as a child is always a struggle in every phase of a child's life. So you have to always stay positive and be patient. It will come, but you just have to be consequent on your teaching. And the child silence, we often think like, oh, do the child understand me, or does it come to their senses? But they do. When they're silent, they are processing more information, and maybe it's too much for them to process at the same time. So they stay silent until they're ready, that they already understood what you have taught, or they grasp the more of the understanding of what you're saying. So it's also important to follow the child's pace. Sometimes as parents, we tend to like, we have to do this now, and this has to be learned now. But yeah, in pedagogy, you always have to follow the pace of the child and avoid interrupting. I do that myself. And my children are also saying that, stop, please, we're talking. And remember, the mistakes, it will come later. You don't have to correct right away, especially when it comes to grammar. Just let them be comfortable with the language first. And yeah, you have to create opportunities, like you can play games or do other stuff that will increase vocabulary and that you can interact more in that language that you want to target. So yeah, by doing that, you can also check the understanding. If they understood what you're saying, if they can communicate with you better, then you know that, oh, they actually get it. And keep speaking activities fun. Children tend to like stop when they, oh, it's boring. It's also when you teach language at school. If you notice in high school, they have so many languages, but does it sink in? They don't find fun in it. It's always like grammar, grammar, all the words. You have to just keep on putting in their head. So it has to be engaging and actually more communicative for them to love it and embrace the new language. Oh, this is for you.
I'd like to add something what you just said on the former slide. If they do not understand the language, and this is where also the understanding of the parents of the school language comes into place. Because if our children don't understand a concept in our home language, it might be that they understand in the school language. And so if the parent has not a very high proficiency or does not understand the terms in the school language, there is a clash, there is a gap. And this is where I'm going to talk about this in a moment. We have to somehow scaffold or to complete the gaps between school and home. Or the teachers can help the parents to understand the terminology and the concepts, and where the parents have also to speak up and to say, I don't understand. Although it's very, very difficult sometimes to address this. So the scaffolding, I think you're all, or I understand you're all teachers, you know what scaffolding is. So I'm not going to explain to you in detail, but just to make an example. So I went to a European school in Italy, and I had history and geography in French. I was in a German section. So I grew up with 3 languages, actually. So for me, I learned everything about Charlemagne in French. And it was for me clear, this is Charlemagne, and everything is in French that has to do with him, which is Charles the Great, if you want to translate it into English. In Italian, it's Carlo Magno. It's very similar, Carlo Magno to Charlemagne. But when I had to talk about it, or when my cousins in Germany during the summer holidays were talking about this character, and they have the same age group as I have, so they had the same kind of curriculum that I had in Italy, and they were talking about Karl der Große, and I didn't make the connection. So this is why, and I would like to emphasize this, we do not translate, yeah, especially if the translation is so far away. For example, for Charlemagne or Carlo Magno, an 8-year-old doesn't use Magno or Magno in the everyday vocabulary. It's rather grande or grand, but not Magno or Magno. So otherwise, I would have made maybe this connection earlier to große, groß, grande, grand. So just to make an example, so we don't translate. So terms, conceptions, and all kind of contexts need somehow to be entered or to be linked among them. Otherwise, I don't like to say that we are thinking in boxes, but what we learn in one language, we store it in that language, and we want to share it in that language. So if I have to share something in history, please don't ask me in German, ask me in French rather, yeah? But if I take a little bit of time and I read some text about this, of course, I can then also talk about this in German, but in order to do this, I need to be exposed and I need to use it. And I need to like using it, right? Another thing, my children are schooled in an English-speaking language, and they were talking about numerator, denominator. It's very easy, right? So if our home language were Italian and French, we have Italian, yes, but French not. Our home languages are Swiss German, Italian, and German. Zähler is very different. You see it just in the concept. Yeah, you could say, okay, if it's numeratore, non c'è problema, there is no problem. But with Zähler and with Nena, it required quite a time and much repetition, I can tell you, to let them understand what Zähler and Nena is in German and what this is then also in English. They learned it at school. So why am I saying this? Many of us families, we want our children also to gain a certain knowledge of what they are taught at school in order to maybe one day be able to talk about these concepts in our home languages rather than the school language. If they would like, for example, to live in our countries of provenance, or if they want to study there, they need to know these concepts. This is just an example of many. How is the concept now learned at school portrayed in our home cultures and languages? And this is a book, I don't think that you see it very, very easily, but just to make an example about learning numbers in Arabic. I don't know if anyone speaks or reads Arabic. No one. So we're all in the same position. But nevertheless, if you have a look at that, you see this picture, what would you do first to grasp what these languages, what these numbers mean? Where is number 1, for example? It's on the right. It's on the right. So we start on the right, of course. We know Arabic is from right to the left. Good. So we have the 1 here. And then it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So what we usually do, or what we often do when we have a child maybe that speaks Arabic at home, some parents start very early on to teach colors, numbers, shapes, and so on. But if this is not the case, and this is the case in many families, that they say, okay, let's let the children first learn how to read and write in the school language, and afterwards maybe in our language. So they go to weekend schools or after school activities in that language. And the way they will approach their own language might be through the school language. Now let's assume the school language is now Dutch or English. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like we all know. And you have this kind of setting. You know, you go from right to left, that helps. And then you see some patterns. Who sees some patterns that are familiar from the numbers that you know that you use every day? I don't know if you can see it there, it's very dark.
It is in a mirror. It's like mirror.
It's like mirrored somehow. Yeah, you're talking about this, I guess.
Yeah, like a 3,
it's
and
like
also
mirrored.
the 2 is mirrored.
Yeah,
but that
A little bit if you use your
if
imagination.
you look at
Yeah.
like yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, okay, the 1 could be like the 1. This one is like the 3 mirrored,
But it's 4.
but it's down,
But
but
it's
it's
4.
actually the
But it's
number
4.
4.
Yes.
But you see, you're bridging what you know with what is different. So when you go home today, you know, when you see the number 3 in Arabic, you would
It's
say
4.
that's number 4. And the same goes with
7.
with
7.
with the 7.
This is 6.
7,
Yeah.
This is a 6,
But it looks
But
like a
it's a
7.
7.
Yeah.
or for us it looks like a 7, but for them it's a 6.
Yeah, 6. Yeah.
Another number, this one maybe. It's pretty much the same. Yeah, it looks like the 9. And then we have the 10, a 2-digit number, and it has 2 kind of things. It's very small here, but you see it's like 2 dots. It's a stripe and a dot. And so if you compare them, this is how it's Romanized pronunciation. Please don't ask me, I'm not so good at that. I don't want to make a very strange thing. But you can see how the process of recognizing and of learning these things in maybe a more fun way can be done. So you, instead of focusing on make 1, 2, 3 and repeat them on a sheet of paper or something, like very often it's done in weekend schools, or by the way, we can have an approach that is more playful and it's more effective. We now learn 4 or 5 numbers without even, investing too much energy, I think. So the next thing we would like to talk about is identity of multilinguals, which is your part.
So we have already talked about it. The language is not just barely focusing on language. You give the identity and their culture to your child when you talk about language. So here, the children, from example, we are here in the Netherlands, and most books are portrayed differently. And given the landscape, the geography, we also don't see some things that are belonging in your culture, for example, or my culture. So when you read a book, you pick a book from your own culture, you also give your child a view of how it is in your world or your own country. And for example, you go to a supermarket, you see fruits, you don't actually know, but you see it there. Would you pick it up? From another country that is not like banana or apple that you normally know. Like the summer fruit. You will not easily just buy it because it's so strange to you. So it's the same with if you don't read books to your child in your home, from your home country, they will also not have that connection. So they will be hesitant to use the language, and they will also be hesitant about the culture. So that's why it's important. And yeah, Dr. Nair Ibrahim already said that, yeah, the framework of identity is the person, the place, and experience. So you give it to your child through books, because you can't always go to the place or see it. And through books, they can see it in a different eye, and they will say, oh, yeah, here we don't have this word. Because sometimes, because of the landscape, you don't have certain words, or there are expressions that cannot be said in another language. I don't know. Does anyone know how lekker is in English or other language?
What? Like,
Lekker. The exact.
no.
We
No,
have so many different.
Even the movement is different.
Yeah.
that's true. So
Lekker.
sometimes, yeah,
So I
so
do this.
bilingual or multilingual.
Can I say something about lekker?
Yes.
When we moved here, my son was, we lived in Italy before. And yes, and he was saying lekker,
and you
lekker
didn't
from the
understand
daycare.
him.
No, because in Italian, if you say this, if you make this movement, it's you are in trouble.
Oh,
So
see?
he made this while eating pasta, and I thought, is it too hot? Is it too spicy or something? I said, and then when he swallows the lekker lekker, I said, okay, now I'm safe. But he was already after even only three weeks, and he was 2.5 years old. He had transferred the gesture from saying "Eguai," you are in trouble, into lekker, and was using it even before becoming really verbal in Dutch. So these kind of things are actually very helpful. Yeah.
And yeah, also the same thing with books. We can transfer more knowledge and not just the language itself. Because for you to really embrace something, another culture, another language, you have to dive into it and not just on the surface. And for example, every country, we have our own hero, we have our own scientist. And if you tell your children about it, they will be proud about the culture and about the people, that they will want to learn more about it. And so they will speak the language. But if you don't have that connection, you think, oh, it's just a language. But if you have something to be proud of, that culture or that part of you, you will really want to embrace it more.
And I see there is a nice display of Leonardo da Vinci's work. So if there is an Italian-speaking child in the class, they say, wow, they are talking about someone from my country. Yeah, and it's valuable.
Yes.
It seems very little, but it makes a huge difference sometimes.
And about songs. Usually with children, it's easy to start with songs. They just sing. They don't even know what it means, but they sing along. So it's also important we have the PeAch bilingual at Spotify, so they can always listen to the home language of the parents. Yes. And like what Ute said about the gestures, the lekker. If we don't understand that, then we will have a different context. And what about other countries also? Yeah, with
This one,
yeah.
that here it's like you're very smart, or that the child is smart.
Yeah.
But in other countries, it's stupid. So it's the opposite. So it's also something that happened to me. And a light star at the daycare said through a window, like there, oh, he was very sad. Said, what did my son do today? And then she showed me the picture that he drew on that day, and that was very smartly done. And I had a moment of hesitation, said, but this is not stupid, this is smart. And she said, yeah, that's what I said. And I said, well, okay. I had to make the switch between the gestures and
Yeah. So it's also important through the books and everything that we are singing, then you have the gestures along with it. Then the child learns, because then you have to be, yeah, responsible of your action as a child while you're growing. So you just don't do gestures you don't even understand. And here, this is also what I like for people who are just coming into the Netherlands. There are books in Prenton Book in Alatalen, and here it's you can be invited to translate a book that you want to read for, so that other parents will also have a go at listening to it. Because sometimes, if, for example, your language is really the minority, there's not so many people around you in your community where you can speak with. This is helpful for the child to understand, like, oh, it's not just us. There are other people, there are other sounds. It's not just my mom or my dad speaking the language. And then it will also be interactive, because you can also associate from what the school is happening, like they work in teams, and then you can follow it up at home with the books from this Prenton Book in Alatalen. So basically,
yeah, basically what the way we can best support the children and also the parents, because the parents are also portraying the attitude towards the language that we are having at home. So the pride of using the language, which is a huge thing. Very often, if the language is not welcomed at school, it will be even more difficult for us to maintain it at home, because our children will respond to it and will also have the same kind of attitude towards our language. And it's very hard then to change that. So the best way to actually work together, the child is constantly going back and forth between the worlds, yes, the world at the school and the world at home and the community. So the best way would be to always have some questions to ask the teacher, especially in the primary school. We can do this, maybe in secondary school a little bit less, but to ask them, what were you talking about? What were the topics? What is the vocabulary that we need, etc. And the same for the teachers. What is your child interested at the moment? I see that they're struggling with something. How can we help you or help your child? I'm aware we have many children in the classroom, but when we can sort out 2 or 3 per day, that might be supported a little bit more every now and then, that's making a big difference already, and it's very effective. So another thing that I would like to focus on, and I wrote a little toolbox for multilingual families with another colleague who is also one of the PeAch ambassadors. And here we gathered 123 activities to do at home with children between 0 and 15+ year olds. You can also do them with adults, actually. And that is an example, for example, playing something like sound and chain letters. Why do we think that playing with the language at home is something valuable? Because if we are the only person translating the language, it's incredibly hard. Our children need also peers would be the best. A whole community would be even better. I always say we need a multilingual village to raise a multilingual child. But what if this village consists of 2 people, maybe 1 only? So if we are only 1 person, then we have to somehow make it fun. I know it sounds very trivial, but if we are enjoying the moment that we spend with our children speaking the language, and we cannot invent more hours a day, then it will stick much more. This one is just the activity you probably know with the sound and letter chain. So you say your word, and then the next player says the next word that starts with the last letter or sound. And here you can see that, I don't know, no, it doesn't work with that. Sorry. But here you see, for example, a child that is not writing yet, yeah, would respond after snake, could say cake, because the last sound is k. Whereas a child that knows how to write snake knows that there is a silent E and might respond as elephant. And then you can go ahead with this and you can talk about this. And maybe the older sibling can say, yeah, that snake is written with an E at the end. How come? Oh, well, because I learned it at school and now it's elephant. And then the next word will start with P, etc. You can also even play it across languages. So if we have 2-3 languages in our home, you can say, you take the English word, the next one the German, and the next one the other one. So here I made an example with just English and German. So Nacht, tennis, and then Sonne, sun. Elephant is the same for both languages. So you can have a discussion about that. Oh, look, elephant starts and ends with the same letters. That's fun, or the same sounds, depending on the age of the child. So you can involve children from different age groups, yeah, and make it fun. We always say not too long, maybe 10 minutes. It's a good start, but it will stick. Whatever sticks, it's very good. Or using multi-meaning words. In German, we doing this activity. In German, we call it Teekesselchen. I don't know if anyone knows this word in German, but it is when you want to find a word that has different meanings. Like in English, bank, where you have the bank where the money is, or the river bank, for example. And you say, okay, that's actually in German, this doesn't work. We only have bank as where the money is, but bank, we also name the bench. And then we have Dutch, of course, we are in the Netherlands. We have both. You sit op de bank and you drink je geld op de bank. But then you have also the other bank, right? Je gaat even op de bank zitten en een koffie drinken. But in the other languages, you would have sofa or divan or divano or whatever other languages there are. So this is maybe less a workshop that we wanted to do. We wanted to involve you much more maybe in the process of it, but the time constraints are what they are. So we just wanted to give you a hint of what parents can actually do at home, and that it can be done also with just 10 minutes a day. Very often the parents I work with, they say, but I cannot afford to have 2 hours of activities. When I come home at the evening, my child only speaks the school language or the community language. How can I convince my child to switch to the other language? And these are things that are fun. They are not focusing, they are focusing a bit on the language, we know it, but for the children, it's a game. So it's not mama or dad or the caregiver correcting them and saying, speak only German or speak only Italian with me, but you embrace all the languages and you make it fun and you make it productive and more effective in the end. So
can I add one more?
Yes.
Activity? Yeah, it's also about the picture books, because when your child is just very young to understand words yet, you can use a picture book, and from the picture book you can describe what you see. But the thing is, if a child, for example, say the word in Netherlands, then you don't correct the child or teach them, no, it's like this in this language. You just have to say, oh, did you say, for example, a stool? Oh, did you say chair? Then there is something like the child will also learn, oh, it's chair in another language. So you can start with picture books too and just, let the child lead and say the word, and then you just say it in another language without correcting, like, oh, this is like this, or telling that this is like this. So you just have to repeat the word in a different language.
Yeah, and with picture books, as we said before, with the phantom book and all the books, when then the reality portrayed in the books is very different from what the children are exposed to. Sometimes maybe they even lack the vocabulary because they don't have the words. Like someone else from our PeAch ambassador said, I come from Peru and we have so many different words for llama. But then we open the books here and
see
llama. One.
And
So the variety of llamas, how to portray this or how to transmit the variety of semantic fields, etc. to the children. It can be done through the books, especially if we are the only ones and the community does not portray this cultural reality that our children should become confident with. Thank you very much. If you have any questions.
As a teacher, if you were interested in becoming PeAch ambassadors, is that a possibility? For example, contact you?
Yeah, you can contact us. At the moment, the project is being evaluated because it's going to an end or it's ended, but we are continuing the work because we are feeding still the database and everything is going ahead, and we are going to form some groups. So you may want to contact me.
Or that kind of information you can ask through the
Yes, you can.
language school. You can share with us when that would be a possibility.
Yes,
maybe?
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions that you have, or?
So maybe just a
Yeah.
little addition.
Yes.
There's this great publisher called Rose Stories who publish books in different languages and different cultures. So for instance, my children are speaking 3 languages at home, including Arabic. So I know the letters, but I don't read Arabic.
Yeah.
But we also have books including headscarves, for instance. Yeah. And these are pretty difficult to find, but on the website of Rose Stories, you can find plenty examples of such books.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, she's writing it down, but that's very helpful. Thank you. As I said, yes, this project was in the context of Erasmus Plus, and the goal were European languages, so the official one, but we have so many members who cover many more languages and dialects that we are going to include more and more. And we're very happy. We also have some dialects already, European ones for the moment, but I find the more the merrier. Great. Thank you very much.
Yes, something. It's really nice to see when you mention that. Our school works with the IPC, and within the IPC, if you go and children have to investigate, they can make a choice to either do investigation, for example, on artists from their home country, or host country or their heart country.
Yeah.
So then they really can dig into more their own culture or learn about other culture and share it with other people. And that's how you